I got the divorce papers in my inbox while I was still deployed in the desert. 13 years of marriage ended in a cold PDF attachment. My name is Ethan Cole, 42 years old, Staff Sergeant with the 101st Airborne Division. I had been stationed in Kandahar for just over 4 months when Lila decided she was done waiting. The subject line of her email read, "Let's be adults about this." The body was 3 sentences. She had already filed the paperwork. She had already drained our joint bank account. She had already moved her new boyfriend, Derek, into the house we shared in Spokane. I read that email twice. Then I closed the laptop, went to the communal showers, dressed for my shift, and told no one. When I returned to my bunk later that night, I wrote back one word, understood. No arguments, no pleas, no threats. My bunkmate, Carter, glanced over from his book. "You good, man?" he asked without looking directly at me. "Yeah," I muttered. "Just stuff back home." He nodded. That was the end of it. In the military, you learn when to leave a man alone. The truth is, I wasn't surprised. The warning signs had been there. 6 months before deployment, she'd stopped asking how my day was. She worked later hours at the dental office where she answered phones. She started spending time at the gym 3 nights a week, though I noticed her never breaking a sweat. New clothes, new friends I'd never met, passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her. That's not who I am. But I wasn't blind either. Quietly, I began making preparations. I rented a storage unit across town and locked away the documents that mattered. My birth certificate, our marriage license, the house deed that was in my name alone thanks to the VA loan, my military benefits paperwork, and heirlooms like my grandfather's watch and my mother's silver. I also opened a new bank account at a different branch and redirected part of my pay there, small amounts, nothing she would notice, but enough to keep me from starting from zero if things went bad. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the airport and whispered, "Stay safe." Her eyes were dry. It felt less like a wife saying goodbye to her husband going to war and more like a coworker parting ways after a shift. I should have known then. We'd met back in 2010 at a friend's barbecue. I was home between tours and staying with my buddy Jason in Spokane. She was finishing nursing school but later took an administrative job at a dental practice instead, less stress, she said. 8 months later, we were married. At first, she'd tell me she was proud of my service, though she never fully grasped it. Her father was a banker, her brother a pharmacist, no military in her family. She used to ask me when I'd get a real job. What she never understood was that the army wasn't a phase. It was my career. We bought a modest home in 2014, 3 bedrooms, small yard, quiet neighborhood. The VA loan was in my name, but I added her to the deed because that's what you do when you're married. My father passed away a year after we wed, a heart attack while shoveling snow. My mother died 3 years later from lung cancer, despite never smoking. They left me enough money to clear our student loans and give us some financial breathing room. But every time I came back from deployment, I felt the distance between us growing. She once told me flat out, I didn't sign up to be a military wife. I understood her loneliness, but the army was the one place I truly belonged. By 2019, small cracks had become fractures. She grew irritated when I called during her girls' nights. She made offhand comments about her friend Melissa, who divorced her husband and was living her best life. She'd tell me we didn't really have much in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She brushed it off. Then came the late nights at work, the weekends away with friends I'd never met, the new wardrobe, the gym visits that didn't show on her. I didn't confront her. My father had taught me to think before acting, to let facts guide me. My gut told me something was coming. In this life, you learn to trust your gut. 2 weeks after her email, I was sitting in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A bank notification. $88,500, gone. Our joint account balance was down to $22.37. Our savings of $47,000, completely emptied. I put my fork down. That night, I called the bank from the base phone center. Lila had been siphoning money for weeks, small transfers at first, then larger ones. The big withdrawals began the day after I deployed. I hung up and leaned against the wall, listening to other soldiers laugh on their calls home. Their lives carried on. Mine was collapsing. Carter caught me later. "Heard you looked like you'd seen a ghost," he said. I usually kept things close to the vest, but I trusted him. She emptied everything. She moved her boyfriend into my house. Divorce papers hit last week. He didn't offer pity or advice. Just one question: what's your plan? That night, I couldn't sleep. I logged into our home security cameras, something Lila had probably forgotten I could do remotely. There he was. Derek. Walking my dog, using my mug, wearing my sweatshirt. And there was Lila, laughing in the kitchen I'd remodeled with my own hands. My chest didn't burn with rage. It froze with clarity. I pulled out my phone and began a list: call James, my army buddy turned lawyer. Check Virginia loan terms. Review refinance documents she had mentioned. Secure pension accounts. This wasn't about feelings anymore. This was strategy. At dawn, I emailed James, need legal help. Discreet. Urgent. His reply came within the hour: call me on secure line. After that call, I knew what had to be done. I didn't need to confront her. I didn't need to scream. All I needed to do was wait. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell her I was home. Checked into a motel downtown under a different name and met James at a diner outside town. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel like it," I replied. He handed me a folder. Inside, bank statements, loan papers, and a refinance application. My signature was on it, except it wasn't mine. The strokes were off, the middle initial wrong. Lila had forged it. She'd refinanced our house, pulling $330,000 in equity, with Derek as co-applicant. Derek, who had DUIs and a fraud charge on record. James laid it out. Fraud. Conspiracy. Identity theft. Bigger than betrayal, this was criminal. I drove to the bank, showed my ID, my real signature, and the forged paperwork. The loan officer went pale. The funds were frozen. A police report was filed. Days later, the FBI got involved. Turns out, Derek and a shady realtor named Daniel Spencer had been running a scheme for years, targeting deployed military families, convincing spouses to sell homes under market value, splitting profits, then moving on. My case tied it together. One afternoon, James and I sat watching my home security feed as Spencer and Derek walked through my house, talking numbers. Listed at 470, sell at 420, Spencer said. Everybody's happy. Derek asked, what about the husband? Spencer smirked. Military guys are all the same. They'll take a settlement and walk away. James recorded the footage. I sent it straight to the FBI. Half an hour later, I watched federal agents swarm my house. Derek and Spencer were dragged out in cuffs. Lila arrived during the raid, standing in the yard, hands over her mouth as the FBI carried out boxes of evidence. Agent Patel asked me what I wanted to do about her. I stared at my wife, the woman I once loved, who'd gutted my life from thousands of miles away. I just want what's right, I said. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Derek took a plea deal, 8 years in prison. Spencer got 12. Lila signed a confession, forfeited all claims to my pension and the house, and was ordered to repay the funds she'd stolen. In exchange, I didn't press additional charges. I sold the house. Too many memories lingered. Bought a cabin in Montana instead, 2 bedrooms, 10 acres, a creek out back. I retired after 20 years in the army. Adopted a German shepherd named Ranger. Did odd carpentry jobs for locals. Quiet. Simple. One day, I got a letter from a Navy wife in Texas. Derek and Spencer had tried to scam her too. Because of my case, she'd kept her home. She wrote, "You don't know me, but you saved our family. Thank you for fighting when it would have been easier to walk away." I pinned that letter to my fridge. Some days, when the silence pressed too hard, I'd read it and remember that something good had come from all of this. Last I heard, Derek and Spencer were still in prison. Lila had moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at another dental office. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't feel much of anything. She made her choices. I made mine. And for the first time in years, I felt free. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt blindsided, betrayed, or broken, remember this: betrayal may cut deep, but resilience cuts deeper. Before you go, hit subscribe for more stories like this, and drop your city or hometown in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Sometimes life takes everything you thought you needed, only to leave you with the one thing that can never be stolen: your strength.